Namaste. Thank you for joining for this yin practice. This week, it's all about the throat center, and the throat is called Vishuddha, the place of purification. So think about how small the neck is compared to the rest of the body. But this is an important passageway between the head and the heart, and an important bridge between the mind and the body. Think about when we do the Ujjaya Pranayama. I'll try to do it really quick so you can hear it. I like to call that the song of the soul. So any pranayama that requires the sound of the breath that we use with the throat is great for this chakra. And I heard a great quote yesterday that said, music is the cry of the soul. So music is a way that we can express the way that we feel. And so the throat center is about our personal expression, our personal truth, and being able to speak up for ourselves and speaking out. It's the right to use our voice and be heard. It's important to learn about the chakras and these energy centers, what they govern physically, emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically, so that we can look back at our history and learn how to heal our wounds, and to also reflect on where we are at this moment, and to see if we have any blocks. Do we have any hindrances? Or can we continue to keep this healthy and connected and whole so that we can move the energy both freely up and downstream? So I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and meet on the mat. I'm thinking all we need today is a bolster and a blanket. So even though I have this set up here, we're not actually going to start off with this. So you can set it to the side. So Corks Pose is something that we do at the end of practice. It typically looks like this. But in the yin form, we separate the feet a little bit wider, and we bring the arms overhead in this manner. So we'll start off here. And just close your eyes when you get the body prepped in this pose. And notice how we have to let our vulnerability go. It's a pose that's very open and free. It can even be a little energizing. You can feel a little jubilant. If there's any aggravation to the shoulders here, you can move the arms in a different placement. Otherwise, stay here, rest, and breathe. So this week, I've been talking a lot about the throat. I want you to visualize in your mind's eye the colors that we've been mentioning that go with each one. Beginning at the base of the spine, imagining it's glowing a bright red. Around the reproductive area, imagine it's glowing orange. The solar plexus, golden like the sun. The heart, a beautiful lush green. And then the throat, aquamarine or blue. As you're continuing to inhale and exhale through the nose, Notice if you're experiencing any limitation or restriction somewhere along the way of the breath. Please know it's important to keep these chakras balanced because all of them will impact and influence the other. Continue to relax and breathe and acknowledge if the voice can indicate the health of the fifth chakra. Realize if there's any constriction in the body, which is first chakra related, it could restrict our voice. If there's a lack of feeling from the emotional body, from the second chakra, it can make the voice mechanical. From the third chakra, if there's too little will or willpower, the voice can be whiny. And if it's excessive in the third chakra, if someone is caught up in their ego, it can be loud, dominating. Since the voice requires breath and air being the element of the heart chakra, the voice can be full. And if the sixth and seventh chakra above the fifth, the third eye and crown, is composed of more consciousness, if this area is not open, it can make the voice dull and repetitive. So see how all the other chakras play on the fifth? Let's take 3 cleansing breaths, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Again. Last one. Draw the knees in towards the side ribs. Catch the feet with your hands. Take happy baby pose. So the neck is more or less neutral here. But you are trying to anchor down your sacrum. Pulling lightly on the feet. Opening the hips so our voice isn't mechanical. We can express our feelings using different tones in our voice, different fluctuations in the voice. Feel free at any point through this practice to use the Ujjaya breath, song of the soul. Feel free to use a quieter breath that you can give your voice a break. We're going to release the feet, roll to one side of the body, and come up. And as you come up, we're actually going to splay the knees, big toes touch. We're going to move to Samhasana, the lion's breath. So we're going to spin the fingers to circle around to face our bodies, resting on the wrist. And the lion's breath is where we breathe in through the nose and expel the tongue like that. All right, deep breath in. Two more. Spin the hands back around in front. Lean forward. Curl your toes. Pick up your knees. Okay? So your heels are tapping together. And we're going to circle the arms around the body and drip the head as low as the tailbone. So I'll turn sideways so you can see this too. Arms wrapped around, resting on the ground. Rounding the vertebrae. Bouncing and breathing. Soften your face, your two rows of teeth, your jaw, your lips, and your tongue. Now bring the hands in front. We're going to stack the back of the hands onto the knees and erect the spine. And your pinky fingers are going to join your thumbs. This is a mudra for communication. Since the throat chakra is all about communication and personal self-expression and speaking our truth, this is a good mudra to practice. Bring the hands down in front. Turn your toes to face the front. Lower your heels and relax down to dangling pose. So your knees can have a bend. Arms and head hanging loosely. The neck is neutral. Restrictions of the body have the potential to restrict our voice, which is why when we move through these postures, we want to see where we're getting stuck. Where is life showing up in the body? Where are we storing stress and tension? Yin is a great way to steepen poses a little longer. Move into some quietude to really self-study.
was mentioning yesterday in class that I was in or brought up in a religion where women could not speak up and be heard. Women had to remain quiet. And growing up with my feminist attitude, I had a lot of trouble with that. And I still stayed a part of that religion up until a number of years ago. And I finally decided to just break free from it altogether because it wasn't aligning to my truth. On your next in breath, push down through the soles of the feet. Lift halfway up, hands stacking to the shins. Lengthen out through the vertebrae. And then determine from here, do you want a neutral neck or do you want to curve your neck and look forward and out? Exhale, spill back down with straightened legs, and then inhale, step back with your right foot. When you step back with your right foot, plant your back foot to the ground, stack your left forearm to the knee, and keep that inner thigh open. You're going to shine the right arm up across your ear, but then you're going to lean your head back to look towards the hand with your Hasta Drishti. If that strains the neck, of course, you can bring it back to where you started. So there's no force. As you exhale, we're going to spin down to the hands, to the back knee, to the back foot. And then inhale, we're coming up to Anjaneyasana. Now we're being active. So we're pushing into the left foot and right shin so that we can draw up to the pelvic floor, navel, and crown. Exhale, left hand to the waist, right hand to the outer knee, and turn slightly to your left. Now see if you can turn your neck a little bit more, possibly gazing over the left shoulder. Inhale, neutralize the neck, lift the right arm. Exhale, bring the hands to the inside of the foot. Heel toe the left foot over. If you need a bolster under your forearms, add it in. Otherwise, plop down to the floor. And then you're going to allow the foot to roll to the outer edge so the knee can wing away from the shoulder. And then determine neutral neck, staying in line with the spine, or bowing your head. If you bow your head, close the eyes. Inhale, come up. Rest down on the sole of the front foot. Rock your hips back. Slide your left knee back. And then we're going to roll down to the top of the thighs, abdomen, and brow. Lift and lengthen each leg. Stack the fingers on the wood floor carpet beside your mat and fly your neck wings up. We're going to do a King Cobra here. Once the elbows fly up, strengthen your back and rise into your back bend. Exhale, you're going to dip down halfway and turn your head to the right. Inhale, return to the top, look straight ahead. Exhale, dip down halfway to your right ear, turning the face to the left. Inhale up. Exhale over. Continue. One more to each. Inhale, Cobra. Exhale, come down. Take your winged or cactus arms, turn your face to the side where you can rest on your left cheek and ear. Check in with your shoulders to make sure this formation's okay. If it's not, you can do this other one. Face plant down, close the eyes. See if you can sense, hear, or feel any vibration from the ground. You might even hear a slight ringing, popping, or blood rushing in your ear. Rock it to one side as you breathe in, to the other as you breathe out. Back to center, release the feet. All right, we're coming up, hands under the shoulders, push up, even your pelvis, toes point, throat opens wide, swan. Exhale, child's. Continue, inhale, swan. Exhale, child's. One more. Inhale, rock up and roll down to the belly. Stacking the fingers to either side, legs lengthened back, feet glue down, glutes far up. Inhale, Cobra. Exhale, turn the face to the left. Inhale up. Exhale to the other. Two more times, back and forth. This time, come down to rest on your right cheek and ear. Soften the buttocks. Down through your legs and feet. Listen with the intent to hear something. It may even be your heartbeat or some gurgling from your belly. Inhale, feet lift. And then we'll inhale to one side. Exhale, swish to the other. Inhale, center. Exhale, feet down. Into your brow. Slip the hands under the shoulders. Push up to table. Exhale to down dog and neutralize the neck. Put the effort in the places where you need to create the ascension of the energy, pulling it from the earth up into your seat. And then walk the feet forward, returning to dangling pose at the top of the mat. The knees will have a soft bend, hang down like a rag doll. Feel free to add in a little nod, yes or no, or a combination of both. Consider how we are going through a time period. It's really interesting, right? We have the cancel culture. There are people being silent. You know, some say they're saying the truth, others saying they're spreading misinformation. And it's really gotten to the point where we can Google about anything, but we're not even sure if it is actual facts or not. We're living during a time where there's cultural appropriation, and some people are taking it too far. And so just consider how the throat chakra is really being impacted right now in our culture, in our world. Inhale, straighten your legs. Bring the hands to the shins. Extend long through the spine. Determine if you need to keep the neck in line with the spine or if you want to add in a little curve by lifting the head and looking out with your eyes. Exhale, release. Inhale, step back with your left foot. Plant your back foot down. Stack onto your thigh bone. Reach the left arm over. Side angle. And then bringing the neck into the equation by pulling the head back, looking towards the top hand. This is the traditional way to use the pose. Doesn't mean it's the best for your neck. So if it's not good for you, leave that portion out. Exhale, bring the hands down, the back knee and shin down. Inhale, rise up, Anjaneyasana. Exhale, right hand to hip, back of the left hand, outside of the front knee, and turning gently to the right. Especially so you can cast your gaze over the back shoulder. Neutralize the neck. Inhale, reach the left arm up. Exhale, bring the hands to the inside of the foot. Heel toe the right foot away. Bring that bolster in if you need it to plop closer to the floor. And then wing the knee open. Bow the head if that's okay for the neck. turn inward. Inhale, we're returning back to stacked arms. We're coming back to the sole of the foot, leaning the hips back to bring the knee back. All right, from here in tabletop position, we're going to inhale, move into cow. Exhale to cat. Inhale to cow. Exhale to cat. One more. And you may need your blanket at this point. I know I do, because I'm on a wood floor. And even with this rug and mat, it can be a lot for the knees. So how about, I don't know, halfway down your mat, crawl the knees all the way towards the front. It's going to make sense in a little bit. And for this first flow, we're going to be motioning our body into camel with the arms out like a cactus, and then coming into child's. Okay, we're going to do it like a flow. So inhale to camel, which, believe it or not, is a yin pose. Exhale to child's. Inhale, camel. Cactus arms. Exhale, child's. Again. We're not going to hold camel today, but we are going to hold child's pose. So go ahead and nestle in. Rest on the brow. Remembering the importance of solitude and silence during times where we've been communicating or speaking a lot and feel drained from the experience. I know when I teach back to back, I like to have silence in the car when I'm going back home. Inhale slowly coming up. So we're going to do, it's a new pose for me. It's something I've seen in depictions and photographs on social media for a couple years. And I've been waiting to be taught this pose, but I've been to a lot of classes. I've never been taught the pose, and I decided to teach myself this morning. And it looks more complicated than it is. However, please be aware, if you are limited in curving your neck, or if that's not a good body mechanic for you, then just don't do it. Leave it out. I know it's good for my neck because I've been losing the curve of my neck after 20 years of doing plows and shoulder stands and bridges and looking down at paperwork and computer desk. So I know this is okay for my neck. It may or may not be okay for you. The most important part is, remember I said crawl the knees to the front side of the blanket? And that's because we're going to take a tabletop position. Now, earlier when I was teaching this pose in the studio, someone was getting stuck in it because they had their hands way back here at the knees before they even started, and it was almost impossible to get into it. So we want the hips to stay over the knees. That's why we do tabletop. We're coming down to the chin. So notice I'm still keeping hips over knees. Coming to the chin, you can just watch for a moment. The arms lengthen back, and I'm tucking the hands under the blanket, stacking the shoulders under the chest, picking the toes up, feet up, and then one of the knees stacks onto the sole of the foot. So it looks like this. And then eventually you switch sides. So I know it looks a little crazy. That's why I've been waiting to be taught, but I've waited 2 or 3 years now, and I finally decided I'm going to figure this out. And then you eventually push the palms up underneath your shoulders to press back up to table. If that feels like, you know, Robbie, that's a little much for me, You can always do melting heart instead and rest on chin or third eye. So that's your secondary option. Either one of those could be like a yin position. Doesn't mean you have to hold it as long as some of the other postures. And since it's fairly new, we're going to go ahead and come up. And we'll play around with that again another day. So one photograph called it a form of locust, but I don't really know what the official name is for that pose. All right, we're going to move on. Legs are going to slide out in front. And at first, we're going to be active, so the feet are going to flex. This is a yin flow, so we're blending active and passive today. As you inhale, the arms float up. And then exhale, come forward with a straight back. Don't worry if your hands touch your toes or not, they can be on the floor. Inhale, straighten the spine. Exhale, slide the hands back and feet back, okay? Inhale, alter. Exhale, sit down. Inhale, feet flex, arms lift. Exhale, Paschimottanasana. Straight legs, straight back, neutral neck. Of course, you can be lower if your body permits. Inhale, straighten up. Exhale, hands back, knees bend. Inhale, alter. Please don't jackknife the neck all the way back. Your neck's remaining in line with your spine, but the throat is open. Exhale, come down. All right, inhale, slide your legs out, bump forward, float your arms up, soften your feet. And then we're gonna roll down to caterpillar, a yin posture. Rounding the back, releasing the heaviness of the head, closing the eyes. Okay, before you come up, notice how loose, the belly is. So we want to support the back when we rise. So start to draw the belly in take your palms down, assist your back to come up. All right, we got one more pose. This is where I would suggest, maybe a bolster. You don't have to have a bolster. I'll show you both ways. So we're gonna have the shins off to one side. Remember, chakra means wheel of life force energy. And this is the wheel of life. So we're gonna start to turn towards, or I should say, turn away from the feet. And it's okay if you want to be here stacked on your forearms. It's also okay if you want to stack onto your bolster. It's also okay if you want to roll down to the bolster. Ready, come up. If you need more time, pause the video. If you're watching it later, if you're with me live, let's go ahead and switch sides. And each side is unique. You may find that, on this side, I actually want to be on my forearms. Or you may find you want to approach it the same way with the bolster. Stay with your breath. Remembering how essential the breath is to life. The windpipe is included in the chakra. When you're ready, inhale, let's draw up. We've got one final pose that we're going to do for Shavasana. Now, I think I failed to mention blocks for this. And some people don't necessarily need blocks, so you may not need them, but I would suggest them for the feet. The bolster is actually something you're going to start sitting on, and the blanket is going to be on this side for the head. And you kind of have to, measure it out, where when you're sitting on the bolster, again, you may or may not want the blocks, but it does make it more level, which usually helps the low back. And then when we descend, we actually want the shoulders and the head of the neck to come down to the blanket, like this. I'll give you a moment to set up your props and to figure it out. If you don't like the way the head and the neck and the shoulders are resting on the blanket, another variation would be to slide down, have your shoulder blades on top of the bolster and your head hanging off like this. Okay. So again, it depends on your neck. Do you want the elevation of the chin to open the throat? Or do you want the traction in the neck and your shoulders down? Pick the one that speaks to you today, that feels good in your body today. Practice silence in Shavasana. 3 cleansing breaths. Travel the feet back, roll away to one side. Come on up to take a seat. Bring your hands in the mudra for communication. Pinky finger to the thumb. So I mentioned earlier this week at the vortexes in Sedona, we had a physical response, a racing of the heart, pulsing in the palms. But there was one vortex where my ear began to ring. You may have experienced that after a loud concert, leaving the venue and your ears ringing. That's what it was like. So hearing is the sense that goes with the throat chakra. Let's close out our practice, putting our voices together. So the mantra is hum, kind of like hum, except H-A-M, hum. Let's do that together. Deep breath in. Hum. Thank you so much for joining me today on this day.